Anytime someone's trying to lose weight, what's the most common advice to hear? Eat less and move more. And while sure, this isn't bad advice, it's also very dangerous advice. The reason is when you hear this, you might think, well, the less calories I eat and the more I move, the better the results I'm gonna get. But that absolutely could not be further from the truth. And unfortunately, it's oftentimes even doctors that are quick to put somebody on these starvation, like 500 calorie diets. So in today's video, I wanna show you why eating too low calorie is just a disaster, what low calories actually looks like for you, signs to look for that your calories might be too low, some actual numbers to be careful going below, and what to do if you've already made this mistake. So here's what you need to know about a really low calorie diet. I know they can be exciting because when you first go on them, you're probably gonna lose a lot of weight and you think this is it, I'm on my way. But there's a couple things to keep into consideration here. One is a lot of that weight in the beginning is just because you've reduced your carbs, which is a lot of water weight, and worse, possibly even some muscle. But two, when you go on these very low, ultra restrictive diets, it sends up so many red flags to the body, and it's going to do everything it can to fight against you. Remember, your body doesn't care about looking good naked. It cares about one thing: survival. And if it thinks that your calories are ultra low, it thinks there's a lack of food around, and it does everything it can to make sure you don't starve to death. So it slows down your metabolism, it alters all your hormones, it makes you feel like crap, it makes you more hungry. Everything just turns into a disaster. And while sure, you might lose more weight up front, you eventually come to a screeching halt. You're nowhere close to your goal because your body's now adapted to these low calories. You have no room to make adjustments to get past plateaus. You decide it's not worth it, I give up. But what happens? You give up, you go back to your old eating habits, probably binge eating even more than before because you felt so restricted and you are so hungry. And what happens? Not only do you gain all the way back, but you end up even bigger than you were to begin with, all because you decided to go on this ultra low calorie diet. But how do you know what low calorie looks like for you? First things first, you have to understand low and high calories is relative to the individual. I hear all the time, nobody should ever eat below 1500 calories or any random number. And while sure, I agree, you shouldn't necessarily just go right to those things, especially like 1200 somehow became like the gold standard that every single female should ever go to. You absolutely want to eat as much as you can while seeing results. And this way it's going to keep you in a good place metabolically. You're not going to be so hungry. Your energy levels are going to stay good. It's going to keep your metabolism in a good place. But the thing is, everyone has different genetics and metabolisms. And sometimes people have to go right down to that immediately. Some people can barely even maintain on calories like that. I mean, take my wife, for instance. She's not only my wife, but she's also a client.
I'm not only the hair club president, but I'm also a client.
We've been working together for like 9 or 10 years now, and I just know, even though her TDEE, if you look it up, it shows that she should maintain her weight on over 2,000 calories. But having worked together all the time, I'm with her all the time, I see what she does, and even after reverse dieting and everything, her maintenance calories are going to be around 1,600 calories. But if I tried to force her up to that higher number with the reverse, she's going to gain way more weight than is necessary. If I try to cut her on what they would say would be a starting point of maybe 1,500 calories, she wouldn't see any results. And yeah, when we go into cutting phases, I typically have to drop her to around 1,200 and something calories right off the bat just to get things going. So if we were to hear, don't ever go to 1,200 calories, she would never see results. Now, I'm not saying go right to that. I'm just saying if you know yourself and you know your genetics and you're taking time to improve your metabolism and taking long times off of dieting, you might have to be more aggressive than some people. So don't let anyone say X calories is always too low, no matter what. And one of the big things is, like with my wife's case, while many people would think 1,200 calories is starvation, is too low and is unsustainable, blah, 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 blah. When we go there, she feels fine. It's relative. But there is a caveat to that. I was talking to Dr. Joe Komzeski one day, and he's like one of the most brilliant minds in this field. And he was saying if you eat below about 500 calories for months on end, you can actually damage the cell, and that would be technically metabolic damage. Which, speaking of how you feel, that's the next thing we want to look at. What are some of the warning signs that your calories are too low? Do you have extreme fatigue? Do you have extreme hunger and food focus? Are you always cold? As a female, are you losing your period? Are you noticing brittle nails and hair loss? Are you finding that you're overly emotional and irritable all the time? Are you finding it unusually difficult to sleep? Do you have binging behavior? These are all signs that your calories are probably too low. And you're gonna have some of these things, right? Like there's a difference between, oh, I'm kind of hungry versus I'm ravenously hungry all the time. There's no amount of food in the world that I could possibly ever make me feel full. That's a very different thing, right? So yeah, when you diet, you're gonna be more hungry. You're gonna lose some energy. Like these things are normal, but when they get extreme and consistent, that's a big warning sign. And with that, I wanna talk about some numbers you should pay attention to. So again, I already said high and low calories is relative, but if you take these signs and symptoms that I showed you from the last step and kind of implement it into this one, these are some numbers I oftentimes find it's time to pay attention. I'm not saying you can't go below these numbers, and especially the the longer you diet, the more likely you are to get there. Remember, your calories should start higher and then they're going to come down over time as you hit plateaus. So it's not like you just go right down to these low calories, but sometimes later in the diet, you might have to get much lower calorie than you'd like to kind of make that final push. So the first thing I look at, if you're someone who isn't like obese, you want to lose some weight, but you're not overly heavy, if you start getting down to around 9 to 10 times your body weight, that's a time to start paying attention. If you are obese, it's going to be less, maybe around like 7 to 8 times your body weight. And the big thing is just don't force it if it's not there. That's the worst thing you can do. So many people get caught up on, I'm not where I want to be yet, so I have to keep going, even though I have all these warning signs. And what ends up happening is you end up just getting frustrated and just giving up, and then you undo everything. So be okay with stopping when you're getting these warning signs. And while I typically say don't worry too much about carbs and fat, you do want to kind of pay attention to your fat. For women, I say you don't want to go much more below about 30 grams per day, and men around 40 grams per day, because fat's essential for things like hormones and nutrient uptake and stuff. So you don't want to go too low on fat. And also, I do recommend typically around 1 gram per pound of protein for whatever your goal weight is. And if your calories are so low that eating enough protein to hit that target means that you have basically no room for any other types of macronutrients, then that probably means calories are getting too low. Now let's just say you're already there. You've made the mistakes. Your calories have been too low. Don't beat yourself up. You didn't know any better. Now you do. Just learn from it and move forward. But what do you do to correct this now? If it's not too bad, one thing you could do is take a diet break first, bring your calories up by around 300 to 500, reduce your cardio in half, and give yourself 2 weeks at this to see if you start feeling better and it refuels the body back up. A lot of times people never take these and the body's just so running to the ground that sometimes if you fuel it back up again, you start feeling a lot better. But if even with that, or it's already really, it's just extreme severe stuff, then what you need to do is go through a process called reverse dieting. What you're gonna do is you're gonna gradually increase your calories now. Take where you started, start increasing by around 50 to 100 calories per week, and just allow your body to start getting used to higher calories. This is gonna repair your hormones, your metabolism. This is how you're gonna undo what you've already done and put yourself back in a position to succeed. However, this is very complex. There's a lot of nuance and a lot of things you need to factor in. I've already got videos on this, so check out this one next, and it'll walk you through everything you need to know to put yourself back into a better place so you can thrive again. So check that out next. I'll see you in that other video.